Welcome to 312, the HRP Podcast. This episode was recorded at the 2025 Mohawk Valley Brownfields Developer Summit, located this year in Herkimer, New York. Our guest for this episode is Sumeet Gupta. Sumeet is an upstate native with a storied career that's taken him around the world. He's returned to the Mohawk Valley to pursue the promise he sees in this region. HRP has been a big part of the summit for several years now, and we figured that a developer like Sumeet is the perfect guest to talk to about the value of the summit. Not only to developers, but to every community that's impacted by brownfields. As listeners know, 312 is divided into a work hard and a play hard segment. We spoke with Sumeet for our work hard segment, and for our play hard, we sat down with HRP's John Gorman. John is Buffalo-based, so our paths don't usually cross unless we're both at the summit. I know that we're both movie fans, and I used the opportunity to talk to John about what he's been watching lately. You can listen to that segment here or watch the video version on HRP's YouTube channel. So we kick off the podcast with Sumeet, who we join now. Sumeet, welcome to 312, the HRP Podcast.
Appreciate you having me.
Excellent. So tell us about yourself. What's your background? Who do you work for? What kind of work do you do?
Yeah, so I've got quite an eclectic background that eventually led me into the world of real estate development. So at a very high level, I've had effectively 3 separate careers. So I was originally from the Capital Region area for all the wrong reasons. I wanted to be in finance, coming out of college. And after graduating from school in Rochester, I found myself down on Wall Street. I spent the first 8 or 9 years of my career working in investment banking. After that, I was going to business school part-time as well as working part-time, and took an internship with the developer. When I got out of business school, I thought that I wanted to get into development. It was right around a couple of years after the global financial crisis, so it was very difficult to find that opportunity. And ultimately, I fell backwards into the world of fintech. So using my banking background, I sort of stumbled into working in alternative credit, ended up launching a hedge fund, moved out to London, launched a hedge fund. And then in 2015, we got really big and I decided to move back to the US. And when I came back here, we got to the point where our company it just felt like I was working at a bank all over again, and I'm an entrepreneur at heart. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to spin out and go launch something that was going to basically marry my 3 interests, which is technology, finance, and real estate, although I had not really tapped into the real estate space. So I came up with this concept that was effectively going to disrupt the timeshare industry, decided that I needed to go pitch a bunch of people who were in development to understand the landscape, and I went to go pitch the developer who I had interned for close to a decade prior. And ultimately, they convinced me to just come on board and start working for them in real estate development. So that happened back in 2016. That was a company by the name of Hoboken Brownstone Company. As I was working with them mostly on luxury market rate opportunities in Jersey City, Hoboken, Bayonne, I wanted to figure out a way to do something in upstate New York, which is where my roots are, and came across an opportunity in Troy. And then COVID was a catalyst for me to really just pack my bags and move back to what I'll say home. My family's since left, but love the area in upstate New York. And so when I came back up here post-COVID, I ended up launching my own company called Five Corners Development. So we are a development shop focused exclusively. Originally, the idea was to focus on market rate multifamily, but since has pivoted to doing a lot more affordable housing, multifamily affordable. I also do some industrial, and then I also, beyond development, I also buy existing value-add properties.
So where are you guys headquartered out of here in
So actually, right now it's me working out of my home office, so based in Saratoga Springs. My commute is 25 steps.
Yeah. Where does the name come from?
So interestingly, I grew up in Del Mar, in around 20 minutes south of Albany, and in Del Mar there's Four Corners as a local area. And I have another business with a friend of mine also from Del Mar that's called Four Corners. And so, again, I'm an entrepreneur. I've got lots of different side businesses. And I was just like, you know what? As boring as I may be as an entrepreneur, I'm just going to go 5 corners, 6 corners. And 5 corners is where the development started.
Gotcha. So tell me more about kind of the nature of the business, like who you serve and what you see maybe the growth areas being.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, originally my goal was to take what I had learned working down in New Jersey, tri-state area and on the market rate side and bring that to this region. What has transpired since 2020, obviously as COVID happened, you had a lot of supply chain issues. You saw construction costs starting to go up, labor costs, insurance costs, and ultimately, I was looking at an opportunity in Schenectady actually to do an industrial deal, and went to go meet with the local IDA Metroplex, and they said, hey, do you happen to know anyone in the grocery business, which I do not. And so, but I was like, I'm happy to give it a whirl, and put out a bunch of messages on LinkedIn, found somebody who wanted to be a grocery store operator. They handed me a very attractive piece of dirt and significant grant dollars to go with it. And ultimately I realized that it's in a market that was prime for housing, but it was a necessity for it to be affordable housing in order for it to pencil. So that started my foray in the affordable space, and now I'm working on 6 different affordable projects. And the reality is right now I can't get market rate deals to pencil, even in, let's say, Saratoga is, the most mature market in the upstate region. It's difficult to even make market rate pencil there. So, I'm on the beginning part of the learning curve of learning the affordable space and focusing all my time and effort on that in that region.
Where do you think those difficulties are coming from?
In terms of why market rate doesn't pencil today? Yeah, so it's a confluence of issues. So putting aside where tariffs are and where they're going, because that's a complete unknown today, just the fact that, since COVID, you've had the issues that the supply chain caused. You've found a lot of businesses realize that they can increase their prices, and they were, expanding their margins, and you're not seeing that margin compression go back down, even when pricing pressure should have eventually pushed that back down. So construction costs have gone up, and then obviously with everything that's happened since January, interest rates have skyrocketed. Treasuries are moving in the opposite direction. The other big component that people don't spend a lot of time focusing on, just because it's less sexy, is really interest costs or insurance costs. So insurance costs these days are 2 to 3x what they used to be even 3 or 4 years ago. So all of those items put together make it very difficult. And then you add on immigration and how that's going to impact labor. There's just more headwind that's in front of us right now for market rate deals to pencil.
So, Sumeet, why are you attending the summit?
Yeah, so a couple of reasons. One is I came here a couple of years ago, had a great experience, met a lot of people. I'm new-ish to the region in the sense of I'm new to the region doing development. So for me, it's important to be out there. Our business is new. It's important for us to get our name out there and build our network. But obviously, they've done a phenomenal job at creating opportunities, at bringing the right vendors, bringing the right politicians to one location. I think for Mohawk Valley, this is probably one of the most significant real estate development conferences that take place. And then more importantly, I now have 2 projects that are in the Mohawk Valley. So again, it's important to be close to the people that are involved, and continue to meet new people, and look for more opportunities in the area.
Yeah. What would you say is the most valuable part of the summit?
I love Spencer Levy. So I was listening to his podcast on my drive-in today. So when I saw him being a keynote speaker, that got me excited. But I think it's the network, right? It's being able to talk to. I mean, I met probably 5 people today who I've been speaking to for the last 2 years, but I've never met them face to face, because a lot of what we do is phone calls and virtual. So just being able to see them face to face, being able to meet new people, and then again, just being around the right politicians, letting them know who you are, what you're doing, because I think the biggest obstacle right now that you're seeing in Mohawk Valley is that you need to attract developers who want to actually do stuff here. It's a rural market. It doesn't necessarily have a glut of whether it be affordable or commercial developers that are based here. So being able to come to events like this and meet the players and meet the people who are making things happen behind the scenes is important.
Now, do you think that value extends beyond yourself and what you're hoping to accomplish in the Mohawk Valley to just kind of developers generally? In the sense that, do you think that there's a lot of value for this summit for developers?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the piece that I think is valuable for other developers, myself included, is being able to understand where those opportunities are. So I do know on the website they post a lot of the different projects that are out there, some of which have been around for a few years, but understanding where new opportunities are, understanding what's happening in the market. So just taking, for example, what happened just last week with the announcement of Chobani and how that's going to impact Utica Rome area, all of that is important information to to be close to understand where the next opportunities lie.
Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit more about that for folks that aren't familiar with kind of the area and what's going on up here?
Yeah, so Chobani announced a over $1 billion in development project here that's going to bring their main headquarters from this region, and they're anticipating to bring 1,000 jobs over the next 3 or 4 years. So it's a material inducement for the need for more housing, the need for more OEMs that are going to help facilitate what Chobani does, and it just speaks to the opportunity that sits here in Mohawk Valley and other parts of upstate New York.
Yeah. I was just listening to a podcast on my own ride in this morning, and they were talking about areas of the country that have been economically forgotten about. And they cited Utica specifically. Do you think forgotten about is an accurate way to characterize this region? How do you think of it?
So let's start with the negative, and then I'll spin it to the positive. I mean, forgotten about in the sense of a lot of these markets were historically strong industrial corridors. And then as the industry left in the 70s, 80s, as a lot of large manufacturers like the leather space moved to China, a lot of these municipalities have they weren't diversified in terms of their industrial base.
Yeah.
And because of that, you saw huge population decimation, and you saw a lot of these markets go by the wayside, and you see a ton of industrial buildings that are just sitting there vacant, dilapidated. So as much as I understand the plight that they're going through, it's about strong political leadership that helps to turn it around. So you look at mayors, mayors like DeSantis, who just won the award.
Yeah.
And you look at mayors in Johnstown, mayors in Amsterdam, other markets where they really want to see change happen and see how do we bring that growth back to the area. That's what I think is the number one most critical thing that I look for, right, is not being able to just find the right piece of dirt, the right opportunity. It's being able to have the right political leadership behind this, because there are so many attributes that go into making a development deal move forward seamlessly, and having the right political leadership is vital to that equation.
Would you say it's the most important aspect?
It's very hard to say the most, because there's always going to be a brownfield issue, or there's going to be a NIMBY issue, or there's going to be an approval issue, or there's construction cost issue. So there's just the best way to describe development, or what a developer does, is that they're the conductor to an orchestra, right? So there are a lot of different moving parts, and the goal of the conductor is to make sure that each ensemble is being able to perform correctly in order for all of it to work together smoothly. So as much as I think that the political component is vital, there are many pieces that play into the overall discussion.
What are the kinds of things that you would look for in a brownfield site that would get you interested in maybe being a part of what could happen there?
Yeah, so first and foremost, you're going to look at the macro situation, right? So let's use Chobani as an example, right? When you know that there is an influx, for me specifically, I like to look at where job growth is, and where population growth is, and where income growth is. Those are probably the three key metrics that I look for in a market where I want to participate. Taking them as an example, now you know that there's going to be significant growth in the area. That you already know, because it's a national epidemic, that there's a need for housing, so the need is only going to get worse. Being able to go into a market like that is the starting point. And then when you do have a piece of dirt, again, if you have a strong political push behind it, and you find a piece of dirt, and let's say it is a brownfield site. In an ideal scenario, you'd like to be able to know that either they've done some significant groundwork, no pun intended, ahead of time to determine that it's a site that can be developed. So understanding phase 1s, phase 2s, some geotechnical, all of that is critical, because it's a make or break of a deal on whether or not it can happen or not. Being in a brownfield opportunity area, which allows for a brownfield site to more easily get into a brownfield cleanup program, is vital for anything that's an affordable housing project. And then, if none of that has been done ahead of time, the other thing is looking for municipalities that have either DOS or EPA grants at their disposal that they can use to help fund these, which we're leveraging that in 4 different projects right now. And it's just, being able to reduce the risk going into a project is very important for any developer, because what people don't realize is the amount of capital outlay that developers put at risk before they even know that they can put in a site plan application. So the more that risk can be reduced, the more likely a developer is going to be intrigued.
We talked on it a bit more, but to maybe kind of sum it up in a concise statement here, what would you say are the biggest challenges, but also the biggest opportunities of this area?
So biggest challenges is going back to what we talked about, is that this is a rural market. It's a market that has seen a lot of deceleration in population over the years. It's a market that struggled with turning the corner on evolving itself from an industrial standpoint. And then it's a market that is somewhat isolated from having a major metro within earshot. Yeah. So those, I think, are the downsides. The positives are that you do have momentum, right? So, going back to what the semiconductor space is for New York State and what it's doing along the Hudson Valley corridor is a huge boon. Obviously, Wolfspeed here, Micron coming, all of that is going to be a strong catalyst for the continued semi-growth, because as you look from the corridor from Poughkeepsie up to Saratoga, then going west to Syracuse, and then eventually even further west are the plans from what I understand. And I think being able to latch on to how that growth is going to be impactful, because not only is that just a resource that we need in New York State, but it's something that we rely on as we repatriate that technology to this country. So now we become a superpower as it relates to we being New York State relative to, let's say, Texas historically. We become more of a superpower in the semiconductor space. Opportunities like bringing Chobani and other major industrial users, FIA in Johnstown, like being able to provide the tax incentives and provide the opportunities for major industrial players who therefore bring jobs and therefore bring high paid salaries and therefore help retail and therefore have a need for more housing. It all just plays hand in hand. That's the other big thing. And then the other thing that I would say is what I love about this region versus some of the other areas that I look at is that you have a much more willing political force behind this, right? So obviously you're going to have your two sides of the aisle always, but when you have strong mayors who are willing to support projects and who are willing to put their foot down, that helps, because in let's say a more mature market like a Saratoga as an example, it can be more difficult because you're the 100th player in the door, not the first, second, or third, and therefore their typical NIMBYism issues that you face, as well as you're more susceptible to people saying we don't want any more growth, whereas this market knows that they need growth.
Yeah. So can you tell us more about some of the projects that you've got going on at the moment?
Yeah, so I'll speak specifically to the two that we have in Mohawk Valley, because I think that's the most pertinent here. So we are just about to finalize a deal with City of Johnstown, and with Fulton County IDA. And then separately, we have finalized a deal in Amsterdam. Both similar in nature, so they're both going to be affordable senior projects. Amsterdam is going to be on ballpark 65 to 70 units. Johnstown to be determined, but be somewhere between 65 and 85 units. Both of them are going to be 9% low-income housing tax credit projects, so they're going to be related to Homes and Community Renewal (HCR). What was interesting in both of those, and this goes back to how you have a very involved and willing counterparties, so not just the political, but also the IDA and economic development. Let's take Amsterdam as an example. So initially the deal was sort of brought to us by we found the deal, but we brought the deal to the Amsterdam Industrial Development Agency, so ADA. Through the work of with ADA, as well as the mayor's office, as well as the Capital Region Land Bank, we were able to put together a deal structure whereby ADA was able to help acquire the site and land bank the site for us. So the reason why that's important is because when you're doing these affordable projects, it can take 2, 3, 4 years before you get your approvals from HCR. So us as the developer have to spend the money up front to go through the diligence and thereafter go and get the site plan approvals. But in order for us to submit for a LIHTC project, we need to have those site plan approvals in place. But because of the queue, because of the competitive nature of those projects, it can take a handful of years. Yeah. So what we don't want to do is unnecessarily take the risk of of the land itself,
Mm-hmm.
in case it takes longer than we anticipated. Or if you think about it in a normal circumstance where you have a private sellers typically just want to sell now. They don't want to wait for 3 or 4 years. And by acquiring land ahead of when we're getting approvals, we can create undue hardships upon ourselves that we don't necessarily want to step into. The other element of that is that when you have a agency like ADA in this example that are at the table, so this property was also in a brownfield opportunity area.
Mm-hmm.
It's this phase of it will not be a BCP eligible, but there's a possibility that there could be a second phase that has BCP eligibility. Projects like that, just as you know with HRP,
Mm-hmm.
Are a lot easier to get approvals from the various agencies to get additional funding when they're owned by public institutions as opposed to the private developers. So having ADA involved not only helps us on the scorecard with HCR showing that there's municipal support, but it also helps to unlock brownfield cleanup program tax credits associated with it.
Yeah.
Very similarly in Johnstown, it's almost an identical deal where we came in to meet with the mayor about a separate project, separate property we were looking at. She said, what about this parcel? We did a bunch of our own diligence and said, this is very interesting. And so what's happening now is that the property is being transferred from the city to the IDA. The IDA, again, is going to be the Fulton County IDA is, again, going to be land banking the property for us for a handful of years while we go through our site plan approval process, do all of our due diligence. And in both examples, not exactly, but in both examples, that there are EPA dollars or DOS dollars that we'll be able to tap into to help fund some of the phase 1s, phase 2s, and other early pieces. Because going back to my earlier point, helping to de-risk the project is critical for us to want to be involved.
Yeah. A brownfields project is certainly a long-term project. You're talking about taking these derelict sites, getting assessment money for them, waiting another year at the earliest to get cleanup funding for them, moving them through this project. Would you say that this kind of brownfields development is a longer term, shorter term than maybe a typical development project? Does brownfields mean that you're in for a longer haul than maybe developers might normally be used to, or is it kind of within the same ballpark, or are things so project specific that it isn't really even something you can make that kind of statement about?
I'd say that the length of it is project specific, but ultimately, yes, you are adding time as you're getting into a brownfield cleanup program, right? So there's an additional layer of getting in with the DEC. So you're putting together your remedial action work plans. You're getting the approval process. You're waiting for them to actually opine on, whether or not you've been approved. Then you get approval from them on what the cleanup standards need to be and how to go about it. So you do typically add, anywhere from 3 months to 6 months as a best case, and could be upwards of a year plus, depending on the severity of the cleanup. But it does add time. That said, because the brownfield cleanup program comes with the tax credits, it would otherwise not be financially viable to do those projects. So it's a great program to incentivize a developer to step in and take on that additional time cost in order for them to be able to get the tax credits on the back end.
Now we are at the Mohawk Valley Brownfield Developers Summit. How essential is the brownfields portion of that for you as a developer? Are you looking at opportunities and developments just throughout the Mohawk Valley, or does their nature as brownfields, does that serve as an essential part of what you're looking to accomplish here?
I would say that it's not we don't necessarily go out in search of brownfield projects, but unlike a market rate developer, a traditional market rate developer, we have no problem hearing, oh, hey, the site has severe contamination and it needs to be remediated, so long as we know that there's an opportunity to either it's already in the BOA or there's an opportunity to bring it to the BCP external of the BOA because of the tax credits that I just mentioned. So are we a developer that purely focuses on brownfields? No. At the same time, are we afraid of going after projects with brownfield requirements? Absolutely not.
So what would you say is your biggest success story since you've kind of come back into the Mohawk Valley and have gotten involved in these kinds of projects?
Yeah, so I mean, because of the pivot that I've taken into affordable housing versus market rate, all of the market rate product that I've delivered has been downstate New Jersey region.
Yeah.
So I launched a company going back around 2.5 years ago. Affordable projects by nature just take more time. Mm-hmm. Now add in the Brownfield piece of this and it adds more time. So right now, as I mentioned earlier, we have 6 active affordable housing projects in the Capital Region, Mohawk Valley included, and we've not broken ground on any of them. Mm-hmm. That said, we're going through the pre-development phase on all of them. One of them's stalled out, but for the most part, everything else is moving forward. So I'd love to say that I have a huge win in sitting here today, and this is what we've accomplished, and we can showcase it. Mm-hmm. But I think I've taken an interesting model of going through and joint venturing with existing affordable developers, because it's not something affordable is not something that we've done before. Yeah, and so we have great partners that we work with that have a lot of wins in the region, wins across the state, and being able to learn from them and point to projects that they've done as part of our joint venture is important. And I think the biggest thing I'd say that for us, or for me at least, is just coming up here, establishing a new entity, and realizing that, as much as I thought that I would never ever be an affordable developer and market rate is my thing, mm-hmm. How much I enjoy the affordable space and how much I, not just because of what's happening on the macro sense, it's just there's a sense of camaraderie, there's a sense of, working together as developers, as opposed to market rate, where they all it's all a fight for who gets the opportunity. Mm-hmm. And most importantly, like I used to say that, why do people would say, your sort of college question, why do you do development? It's, you changing the landscape. I think this is more than that, right? It's about helping people in need, and it's about being able to provide housing for people who can no longer afford housing because of where costs have gotten. So I'd like to say that there's a definitive, here's my flag in the ground as to what I think has been our biggest accomplishment. But I think that's what we've done so far has been an accomplishment in my own regard. Mm-hmm. I think what you'll see from us over the next 5 years is really going to showcase that, we're here for the long haul, and affordable housing is really a big staple of what we want to do. Yeah.
So you've, literally worked all over the world, been in some of the biggest money areas a person can work in. And at the end of the day, you decided you wanted to be here in the Mohawk Valley working on this. What do you think it was that really sealed that decision for you?
Sure. It's a great question. I get asked a lot from my friends that are still in banking or the hedge fund world. They're like, why did you ever leave this? One thing I can say for sure is it's not the money. That was a thing of the past. But it goes hand in hand with my previous comment. I think being able to do something that's more meaningful to me from a social perspective, it's not just about how many dollars you put in your pocket. It's about being able to do something, be involved with your community, be recognized for doing good in your community, and being a part of the growth of any market you're involved with. Like, mm-hmm. I'm a board member on the Saratoga Children's Museum. I love everything about that museum and what it stands for. Right? Is that something that I would ever consider as a market rate developer? I know they're not I know that they're not tied together, but I think for me, what I've learned over the years that, early on when I was 20 and I was chasing money, that was great for me when I was 21 years old. Now it's about doing good for the community, being able to give back to the community and create opportunities for everyone to enjoy. Yeah.
When you think about the future of this region, of the projects going on, how do you feel about it? What does it make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, just want to see more Chobanis, right? Yeah. Like the more of that we see in this area, like as I said before about the semiconductor space, like I'm a big believer that we can take that whole industry out of Austin and put it up here. And because of what's happening at the federal level, there's a need to bring more of that back to the U.S., that this market has, despite the fact that we've seen net migration population statistics over the last 5 to 7 years, that there is an opportunity here. I mean, the pendulums always swing as it is with shifts in policies and shifts with populations. And I think that, what will bring the upstate region back to I don't want to say dominance, but back to a stable market, is bringing those jobs back to the area. We have, as Spencer just mentioned on his speech, like, unlike some of the Sun Belt markets, we have a very educated population and we have great educational institutions. So being able to leverage the people that are here, and with strong policies at the both state and federal level, I think that New York has a long-term upside.
And just last question, why do you think people should come to the summit?
Oh, just to meet with HRP. That's the most important thing. No, it's again, it's about being able to, if you want to be in this region, you want to be active in Mohawk Valley, then being at this summit is important, because you're going to meet the right people, you're going to find the right opportunities, you're going to realize, who's actually moving the needle. And if you're standing from the outside looking in and you're not involved, you're going to miss the opportunities.
Well, Sumeet, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity, and look forward to seeing you at the conference.
Question that I don't think I'm going to use for anything, but they might bridge to some other content. Okay. And this is more of like kind of the fun side of what we do.
Sure.
What was the best movie that you recently saw? Yeah. What was the last good movie you saw?
Okay. I mean, it's a little dated now, but I'm gonna go with The Departed.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's I think in the 2000s that might be one of the best movies that's been on the market. So I was at home on Sunday. My wife will only watch movies that are related to law enforcement and and mafia or drugs or something along those lines. So she put it on, and normally I'm not one to sit still for 2.5 hours, but The Departed it's a classic.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you a big movie guy generally, or are you just too active to really sit there like you said?
Finding me to sit down for 2 hours at a straight is very difficult. I like to watch movies with my laptop in my lap, so I pick up 75% of it, so I can't say that I'm necessarily a huge movie guy.
Yeah. What would you say is your favorite movie?
Of all time?
Yeah, if you had to pick one.
Well, I mean, it's a little embarrassing to say, but I mean, just because as a kid I was just enamored with it, and I still am enamored with it, but it's Bad Boys. Like I was a huge Will Smith fan from just back in the day, and the I'm a car guy, so I love the cars that they've had in the movie, and then I'm an action junkie, so like all that together with a little bit of comedy, it just checks all the boxes for me.
Yeah, there you go. Can't beat it. All right, well, thank you again.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Perfect. Everyone, welcome to the beautiful Mohawk Valley. We are here at Herkimer Community College for the Mohawk Valley Brownfield Developer Summit, and it's a rare chance where myself and John Gorman get to be hanging out in person. We're both big movie guys, so we're going to use this Play Hard segment as an opportunity to talk about movies and I guess kind of media and TV shows we like generally. Twin Peaks is a great place to start because my favorite director, David Lynch, it's his baby. Yep. And God, we'd lost him, I think, this year, right?
Yeah, I think back in January or February, he passed
during
away.
the fires in LA.
Yep.
Yeah, rest in peace to maybe the great.
I think he's a goat of directing.
For sure.
I have two older brothers, then both of them love David Lynch. They kind of got me into him. I still haven't seen everything, but if you haven't checked out any David Lynch works, I don't know if there's a great place to start watching his movies because they're all so weird.
Mulholland Drive was my first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Mulholland Drive is really good. It's my favorite. Out of all, other than Twin Peaks, I think Mulholland Drive is my favorite. David Lynch.
Blue Velvet might be the best one to start with.
I think it's the most accessible.
But and you get the taste of everything he's going to offer you in that too.
Yeah,
but you do have a more conventional story.
Right. There's some mystery. There's some horror. There's some wacky visuals going on.
Yep.
There's some weirdness. There's Kyle MacLachlan.
Doing a duck impression.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And Laura Dern, who's great in that. But I don't know. Eraserhead is probably his weirdest.
For me, I think it's got to be Inland Empire.
Or Inland Empire,
just
if you
because
can stomach it.
Yes. What's so interesting about Inland Empire is it was deliberately shot on super low resolution digital cameras.
Okay.
So it looks terrible.
Yeah.
But the idea was by having an image that has so little detail in it, you can hide all of these things and kind of warp people's faces into these really weird expressions. So there's this like interrogation scene where the person's face just looks so distorted and strange.
Like wrong.
Yes. Just because of the low resolution image and the poor lighting that they have it in.
Well, that's a very David Lynch thing to do, is just make people look like bizarre. Like some of the camera work he does makes people look, it's just horrifying. And
yes.
Twin Peaks does that a lot. Twin Peaks and Inland Empire both have a lot of distortion and weirdness around people, the way that people are filmed.
Yeah.
But Inland Empire, I mean, that's almost like it's like 3-hour movie, and
yes.
I would not encourage anyone to start with that. But
no.
if you want to get the full David Lynch experience, like,
it's kind of a completionist move for me. I'd like to revisit it because I think I'm a bit more sophisticated and educated of a moviegoer now than I was when I saw it. So, but it might be a one and done kind of experience, honestly.
Well, when I watched it, I didn't really like it but I knew I would have to go back and watch it again because I just, so much of it does not make any sense. There's an entire short film that he made. Well, I don't know if the whole thing's in there, but there's like the claymation rabbits.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're claymation.
Well, no, they're people in bunny suits.
Oh. Well, see, that's even weirder.
That's what you're talking about, right? Because that's the thing I watched, and that's like, it's supposed to be like a 3-camera sitcom style thing.
Yeah.
Like, looks like it's on a stage, and it's just people in rabbit suits.
Yeah, and they're speaking nonsense.
Yes, nonsense lines. Some seem completely random, some seem very profound, and they're all completely disjointed, and then sometimes everything goes red and they come out and make demon noises, and then they go back to this thing.
And it has nothing to do with the rest of the movie.
No.
Yeah, that's the weirdest one. Although Eraserhead was the first David Lynch movie I watched, other than, I think I watched Mulholland Drive, then Eraserhead.
Yeah.
But Eraserhead was his first film, I think, like his on his own.
Yeah.
And that one for sure is up there with his weirdest.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Yeah, if you want that experience, Inland Empire and Eraserhead would be the route I would go.
Okay, so John, we're Letterboxd guys.
We are indeed.
What are your 4 most recent movies?
Let's see. I know my first movie, as in the most recent one I watched was Manchester by the Sea, which I watched 2 nights ago. Which was a very sad movie.
Yes.
Very Massachusetts movie.
Extremely.
And it was kind of a bummer. I gave it 3.5 stars. I know a lot of people seem to really like it. It's up there in the, I think, IMDb top 250.
Yeah.
So which is why I watched it. But you've seen it?
Yeah, it was more sentimental than I was expecting. I knew of it when it came out, and I would see clips of it pop up here and there of like the most intense moments from it. I'm like, wow, this looks incredible.
Yeah.
So I watched it, and it's very good, but it does have a lot more standard family drama, sentimental moments in it than I was expecting, like laced in with this kind of incredibly bleak drama.
Right. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna watch it again just because it was very depressing. But it was still good, and I would recommend it for most people. And then I watched the original Mission Impossible just before I watched Manchester by the Sea, which I'm kind of doing a Tom Cruise gauntlet.
Oh yeah,
this year.
Okay. What have you got so far?
I've got, let's think. I still have to watch Top Gun.
You haven't seen Top Gun?
I haven't seen Top Gun
Either
or Top
one?
Gun Maverick.
Oh, okay.
No. I watched Tropic Thunder, of course. I kind of watch that every couple months.
All right.
What else has he done? I guess he's in all the Mission Impossible movies,
he's
which
in
is
all of
why
them. Yeah.
I started that.
Remember when they tried to get Jeremy Renner to be the new one?
Yes.
Boy, that did not last.
No. And I think there's like 8 Mission Impossibles.
There's got to be at least.
And I guess the 7th one is the best one from what I was told.
Really?
Yeah, like not the most recent one, but the one before that's got a really high Letterboxd score. So I kind of want to get my way over there. I got to watch Edge of Tomorrow, Interview with the Vampire.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So I'm a horror guy, and Interview with the Vampire was a gleaming dark spot I had that everyone seems to have seen that I missed. That's a great one.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise. A little weird, but I would recommend that for most horror heads. If you like vampires, you got to watch him. Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah, that's a pretty classic 90s movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just going down the list, Conclave, which we talked a little bit about yesterday.
Yep.
That one was, I think it was an Oscar winner this past year.
It was certainly nominated.
It was nominated for a lot.
Something.
They may have won like screenplay or one of the lesser awards because I know Anora cleaned up like everything, which I still have to see. But Conclave was good. I enjoy. Who's the lead actor in that?
Ray Fiennes.
Voldemort. Yeah, he was very, very solid in that. They've seen that one's got a lot of really high-end actors in it.
Yeah, I thought that was a fantastic movie.
It was a good one. I would recommend that too.
Mm-hmm.
And then before that, I watched Terror Vision, which is that is an 80s horror movie.
That's the one we talked about the other day.
That's the B movie. Probably made no money whatsoever. Probably was never up at a show for more than a day. But that was a lot of fun. It was really goofy. It was more comedy than horror. But I would recommend that too if anyone wants to try something weird out in the horror realm.
What's the premise there?
The premise is there's an alien. I don't know how to describe it.
Okay, go ahead.
He's an alien satellite monster who gets beamed into the television set of a family in the 80s. And the entire house is dedicated to the concept of swingers, as the two parents in it are swingers, and that is pretty much the main plot of the film going on, other than the fact that this monster keeps going in and out of their rooms. So that is really weird. But at the time in the 80s, that was kind of like a normal thing for these B movies.
It sounds 70s to me.
It could be. I mean, it could have just as easy.
The swingers thing in the middle of a horror movie sounds very 70s exploitation, Italian cinema kind of.
It very much was. There's a lot of weird words in there that aren't used anymore.
Sure.
So it's a bit of a time capsule. I can't really quote any right now, but I would say that I don't know where you could find this film, but I watched it at a screening at a 80s horror night in Buffalo. So. If you like weird horror, that's another place I would go.
Yeah, so you're out in Buffalo.
Yep.
What is like the movie scene like there? Because they're doing like screenings like that. Is there a lot of stuff like that you can check out in Buffalo?
Yeah, so I know University at Buffalo, they do a Thursday Night Terrors program where once a month they pick a really weird or obscure horror movie to put on for everyone, and it usually has a great turnout, usually sells out. I just went to my first one, but I've known about it for a while. My old manager at Wegmans is actually a movie director, and he has his own films, and he kind of is plugged into the Buffalo film community. I still keep up with him, and he gets me a couple cool movie posters signed every once in a while.
Nice.
Yeah.
So is that your most recent four?
Those are my four.
Okay.
Let's hear yours.
I'll start off with Conclave because I also saw that. Then I watched Bad Lieutenant.
God.
Harvey Keitel. That was quite the experience.
Is that a new one?
No, that's the original.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I've seen it on Letterboxd before.
Yes.
I think I've got it in my watch list.
Yeah.
Would you recommend it?
I would, but you're in for like a ride with that one.
Okay.
Yeah. That's about the dirtiest of dirty cops in New York City.
A corrupt cop
doing the most heinous, horrific stuff you can imagine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's an 80s or 90s film?
I think it's an 80s film.
Yeah, it's Harvey Keitel.
Yeah.
Probably might be 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Then we followed that up. So that one I rated pretty high.
Okay.
Then we followed up with one that I thought was an absolute stinker, which was Gladiator 2.
Oh, God.
Didn't even finish it.
See,
sucked.
I've been dodging that one because I've read nothing but it's kind of the worst type of Hollywood movie, blockbuster, that just has no substance to it.
No. It looked bad. It was very dumb.
Yep.
The performances were not good. As far as I could tell, it was almost the exact same movie as Gladiator, but worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a real bummer because Ridley Scott used to be one of my favorite directors, but the last 10 years he has made some garbage.
Yes. It felt like there was no script supervisor on set because things were happening continuity-wise that didn't really make sense.
Right.
Like you would have, before a fight, you would have two characters talk to each other in front of a crowd. And then after the fight was over, someone would come up and try to talk to the winner, and the winner would not respond.
Yeah.
And the person would be like, "Can he speak?" And it's like, bro, you just heard him speak not 2 minutes ago. What do you mean?
It sounds like a garbage script.
It was not good.
Yeah.
It was not good.
Yeah. That's unfortunately a lot of new blockbuster movies that do well. Unfortunately, they for all the Marvel lovers out there, I think it kind of falls into these like unfortunate places where they put no emphasis on the screenplay whatsoever. It is not a good story.
It feels like I think what happens, and I don't really know the industry, but it seems like as an outsider, what's going on is they are looking for safe investments.
Right.
They've got certain things on a spreadsheet that have been working, so they're going to stick to that.
Right.
The script seems to be the thing that they're going to sacrifice.
Right.
They can start the post, and this is what I've heard about Marvel movies too, is that they know what their action set pieces are, so the production on that gets started.
Right.
5-6 years out.
Right.
And then they write the script around those.
It's the least important part of the movie.
Yeah.
Which is such a shame because they used to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And now they are not.
Yeah.
I will say David Lynch is the anti-Hollywood right now, I would
Oh
say.
my God, yeah, he was.
Like, they would not make his movies in today's, what's the word, climate or Hollywood scene at the moment. He just is the opposite of what they want.
One of the things I enjoyed about the Twin Peaks: The Return so much was, I don't know if they were, he did not care if the special effects looked convincing or not or good. He would just it looked like he was hand drawing stuff onto the frames at points.
Right.
He was like, I don't care, this is fine with me. I don't need to dump money into the CGI thing.
No, I think it almost adds even more weirdness to an already weird show because you question why they decided to leave it looking like some of the effects are. I'm trying to think of a good example, but there's just wonky. You would think that like a high schooler could maybe do some of the effects, but it to me it just makes it even more scary in a couple scenes, to be honest. There
was one effect I remember in particular where a person's head turned into an egg.
Yes.
That then cracked.
Yes.
And it was just that there were maybe, instead of like an animation of this thing cracking, there were maybe 4 different pictures of an egg in different stages of crack that he would cut to with like a stock sound effect over it.
Right. Yeah.
And it had that. It was effective because of its eeriness.
It just looks like something that shouldn't be made.
Yeah.
But yeah, I should say, for those who don't know, Twin Peaks: The Return is season 3 of Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
And that came out 25 years. One of the cool things about it came out 25 years after the original show.
Yes.
And in the original show, they talk about returning in 25 years.
Yeah, that's so good, right?
So I feel like it's just one of those things where all the actors aged normally. It just felt like such like a very rare piece of media.
Yeah.
And if you can get through season 1 and season 2, I will say season 3 is the best of the Twin Peaks.
I would say it's also the hardest one to get through, though.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's also the most terrifying, I would say, too.
Yes, by far.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also think, for me, I think probably episode 8 of season 3 is the best episode of television that's ever been
That's
aired.
that's the one where David Lynch put all of his special effects budget into.
Yes,
right?
basically, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that one. That one, when I was watching it, I realized that is the best episode of the series, and it's probably the best season when I was watching that one.
Yeah.
And again, that was episode 8, so you kind of have to get through some of the earlier episodes to get to that one.
Yes.
But stick it out, and it'll be worth your time.
Mm-hmm. Do you have in mind like a best episode of television ever?
I don't know. That's a great question.
Are you much of a TV guy either?
I used to be. So I watched, Stranger Things, Breaking Bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's so tough because Game of Thrones, obviously. I remember when the Red Wedding episode happened in Game of Thrones, that felt like that was like a cultural moment in time. So I would say that one probably was my favorite. But I don't know. The way that Game of Thrones ended, I really didn't like it that much, so I'm kind of sour.
Yeah, it ruined the whole thing for me. I have no interest in it anymore.
Yeah, it soured it so much for me that I didn't watch the sequel shows.
Yeah. It's funny because I was thinking about this the other day. There was a period of time when the 2 front runners for greatest show ever made were Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone would claim that now.
No, I watched The Walking Dead. I thought it was the best thing ever, but it went on. That was a show that went on for too long.
It continues to go on too long.
I know.
It will never end.
I guess that's a cash cow that just keeps paying out. They just changed the name of it.
Yeah, well, they figured out they could just have people run around in the woods.
Yeah.
And a few of them would have zombie makeup on, and that's all you need.
Yeah.
And people just keep showing up.
Right. You know what, though? I do think Twin Peaks season 3, episode 8 is the best, though.
I think it might,
I come back. There's a lot of stuff that kind of gets explained in that episode that kind of explains the entirety of Twin Peaks if you rewatch it a couple times.
Yeah.
And I can't really think of a whole lot of shows that like divulge that much information in a single episode that's that important.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would go season 3, episode 8, number 1 episode. What about you?
I mean, that is mine.
That's yours?
That's mine.
Okay,
Yeah.
got
yeah. God, it's. There've been a lot of. I still think the best television ever made is still coming out.
Really?
Yeah, I think between Andor and Severance, you've got contenders for the greatest show of all time.
I got to watch both of those. I've heard nothing but good things about Severance.
Mm-hmm.
That's Ben Stiller, right?
Yeah, but he's like on the back end.
Okay,
of it, so
he's
you
just,
don't have to see him doing his thing on camera.
Okay.
Which I'm not crazy about.
You don't like Ben Stiller?
I'm not a Ben Stiller fan. I appreciate his turn to directing and producing because I feel like he's making very good stuff.
Yep.
There, and I never found him particularly funny or engaging on camera.
Well, for me, that's the way you just described that is Adam Sandler. Who kind of turned into that.
Yeah.
But Adam Sandler, I don't think is making movies for cinematic art quality these days. He's kind of making whatever he feels like making.
Yeah.
Like I remember Uncut Gems was one of the weird ones that.
Yes, I love Uncut Gems.
Don't even recognize Adam Sandler in that movie. He's such a weird character. There's
a lot of guys like that where they are known specifically for something like comedy, and then they take a completely different direction, and they're fantastic.
Right.
Like the one that comes to mind most for me is Robin Williams.
Okay.
I never found him funny. Like his particular thing always seemed very annoying to me, but his dramatic roles are usually like some of my favorite things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little 90s nostalgia for me, but
I
love him.
I know a lot of people love Robin Williams, and I'm kind of with you where I just haven't seen enough of him in a good role. I know Mrs. Doubtfire is like one of his better ones, but I haven't watched enough Robin Williams. Mm-hmm. Mostly his serious dramatic roles.
Yeah. That the Insomnia movie that he made with Al Pacino is really good.
That is it's the director who did Dark Knight.
Yeah, it's Nolan.
Christopher Nolan.
So we should do more stuff like that instead of the spectacle movies.
I know. So Christopher Nolan, I mean, The Dark Knight. Do you want to have do you have a top 4 favorite movies of all time on your Letterboxd?
Of all time for me? Yes. Yeah. My 4 favorite movies of all time. Vertigo. Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me.
Okay, I like that.
Mulholland Drive and 12 Angry Men.
Okay. Those are great choices.
Yes, I have my favorite movies typically are either surreal murder mystery, women in distress, or a room of men yelling at each other. Glengarry Glen Ross would be the other one on there if it was 5.
Oh, I gotta watch that. I almost watched that a couple days ago.
Next month I'm going to see the Broadway production of it.
Oh, really?
Yes, with Bob Odenkirk and Kieran Culkin.
Nice.
And a couple other big names in there. Bill Burr.
Really?
Yeah, I'm very excited about that.
I'm jealous of that.
Yeah, it costs a fortune, but I figure I can't imagine a Broadway show I'd want to go to more than this one.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
So I know for a fact, my favorite 4, I used to have Mulholland Drive in there, but I had to make room for it. So there's a horror movie with Nicolas Cage called Mandy.
Yeah.
That have you seen that before?
I have, yes.
Okay. I couldn't recommend that enough to anybody who is into Nicolas Cage. He's probably my favorite actor of all time, I would say.
Yeah.
Unironically. This is a cheat answer to Twin Peaks: The Return. It's not a movie, but it is in my top 4. Mm-hmm. The Dark Knight, which we were just about to talk about, Christopher Nolan. I feel like that's the best superhero movie ever made, but it's beyond that. It's just a great movie in general. And The Shining, which was the first horror movie I really watched, which kind of got me into it, and then I became a horror movie guy from that point onwards.
The Shining was in my top 4 for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Stanley Kubrick and David Lynch, we can both agree on,
for sure,
are 2 pillars of movies. 2 of the best.
Yeah. I guess to close out here, I'll do my last recent view. Just kind of a horror comedy, I guess you'd call it, which I would highly recommend, which was Companion. Have you seen that?
Yes, I have not seen it. I know it's on Max now.
Yes.
And that's been on my list for a while.
Yes.
As a new horror. Mm-hmm. So what did you think?
It was good. It's I'd say it's more of a black comedy than a horror movie necessarily.
Okay.
And it had some really clever turns in it.
Okay.
That caught me by surprise.
Okay.
Yeah.
A couple twists.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a fascinating horror sci-fi movie that is kind of an exploration of like toxic relationships.
Right.
So I think it's great. I would highly recommend it.
Okay, I'm gonna watch that probably this week.
Yeah,
no doubt.
I won't give away too much.
Yeah,
But yeah,
no,
definitely.
I'm gonna be watching.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that'll wrap us up here.
I think so.
All right. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. If you are listening instead of watching, head over to our YouTube channel, HRP Associates on YouTube, to watch us. Or if you're still out there listening, rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, rate us on Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. And like and subscribe if you are on YouTube. We will see you in the next video. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.